We've got breaking news tonight. Hurricane Delta makes landfall in southwestern Louisiana as a Category 2 storm in what has been already a record year in the tropics.
It is now a Category 1. The storm barreling on shore in Creole, Louisiana, less than an hour ago. Live picture you see right there. Winds clocked 100 miles an hour.
Delta is the 10th named storm to hit the continental U.S. this year and the second to hammer Louisiana in less than 2 months. Our NewsNation weather team has been tracking the storm's path all night, and we have NewsNation reporters along the Gulf Coast. We're going to start with Jacob Bradford live in Cocodrie, Louisiana. Jacob?
Hi there. Yeah, we're way as far south down as you can go here in Louisiana. And even though this hurricane is hitting in southwest Louisiana, we are still feeling the effects here in southeast Louisiana because this hurricane is just so big. I know you can see the wind whipping around me, and it is bringing down a lot of branches that we can see, a lot of moss, but thankfully nothing too major yet. Down the road is a floodgate that they have closed up. They're not expecting the road to be covered up by water until about 2 o'clock tonight. But for right now, everybody's just hunkering down, watching and waiting to see what Hurricane Delta does just yet. But one of the weird things that I've seen, at least, or a little bit odd things that I've seen out here tonight, is that the bayou that's next to me has whitecaps on it. And usually bayous are very stagnant water. They don't move a whole lot. But this hurricane is bringing up a lot of storm surge and a lot of wind, at least out here, to where the water is starting to get a little bit rougher. So for right now, like I said, we're just kind of watching and waiting out here in southeast Louisiana to make sure that we stay as safe as possible. Reporting live in Cocodrie, Louisiana, Jacob Bradford for NewsNation.
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously an intense situation for so many along the coast, and they're not out of the woods yet. Hit land as a Category 2 storm, now a Category 1. It's a good time to bring in our chief meteorologist, Albert Ramon, talk about the timing of all of this, the wind strength. What are your biggest concerns right now, and pinpoint where you're watching?
Well, the good news is it's inland, so it's weakening, and the top of the hour update just in, Cat 1 hurricane, 90-mile-per-hour winds. But you're right, there are still a lot of issues out there, heavy rainfall, strong winds, and because this is still moving ashore, you're getting a lot of surge, salt water from the Gulf of Mexico being forced inland. Now, the heaviest activity on the radar has just surpassed I-10 near Lake Charles. So it's beginning to see the worst of the conditions, both wind and rain, move into south central sections of Louisiana. Notice, though, it's just the northern section of the eye wall. It's pretty dry air here on the southern section of the eye wall as this continues to climb up towards the north. So there's the latest position just off towards the southeast of Lake Charles. This is Cameron Parish, and we'll show you here in a second where Laura made landfall and where this storm has made landfall. As a crow flies, only about a 15-mile difference from 6 weeks ago, Cat 4 Laura making landfall here in Cameron Parish to just about an hour ago with Delta, Category 2 at landfall, 100-mile-per-hour winds, weakening now to a Cat 1 as that continues to move off towards the north. So same area still recovering from Laura having to deal with this tonight. Wind gusts that we've seen, the highest about 80 miles per hour now. That's just coming in from Lake Charles. 68-mile-per-hour wind gusts over the last several hours to the north and east of Port Arthur. 81-mile-per-hour wind gust in Lake Arthur area here in Louisiana. And there have been some buoys offshore that have had about 75 to 78-mile-per-hour winds. There's a look at the latest wind gusts. 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts right now near the center of circulation as that continues to climb up towards the north. And heavy rainfall. Doppler radar estimates of 6 to 8 inches between places like Lake Arthur and Lake Charles, and all of that rain is headed up towards the north. So the forecast by late tonight continuing to weaken into a tropical storm as it moves into northern sections of Louisiana, moves off towards the northeast as we roll through tomorrow, and then by Sunday it's a remnant low, just kind of a little bit of wind and rain in central areas of Tennessee. But with this making landfall now tonight, we're making history here in the United States, and with that part of the forecast, let's go to meteorologist Gerard Jabele.
2020 has been an unprecedented year in so many different ways, and it's no different here for hurricane season as well, as Delta is now going to go down, as you heard, the 10th named storm to make contact or landfall here with the continental United States, putting us at the #1 spot for landfalls, and this breaks an all-time record since 1851. We were tied with 1916 until today, just hours ago. Now we put it right there in the #1 spot. Not a record you want to break, certainly, but an incredible one thus far. All right, let's talk about what is going on a little bit more with Delta here. The winds are going to continue to be very gusty, even though the storm is going to continue to weaken over the next several days here. We could see plenty of wind stretching for quite a distance as well. The gustiness of these winds stretches so wide, we're talking 300 miles in width of the tropical storm winds from Birmingham, Alabama, all the way into Arkansas. So the effects are very wide-reaching here. Now, as the storm starts to die down, we'll see the winds eventually calming, but we still have another 24 hours of at least tropical storm force winds. Storm surge, we saw anywhere from 6 to 9 feet across many of these southern coastal Louisiana areas, and that has been the one thing that they have seen too much of 2 times in a row when we're talking about Laura, then Delta, and only weeks apart. And now we also have to deal with flooding rainfall is going to also stretch very far inland. We'll see the effects of the rainfall through Nashville, through parts of the Appalachian Mountains, even reaching as far as New York City. We'll be seeing some of the rainfall associated with the remnants, or soon-to-be remnants, of Delta. And again, as you heard, 6 to 8 inches of rainfall down along the coast. We'll be seeing the rainfall stretching all the way up along the eastern seaboard. 2 to 4 inches of rainfall could be felt all the way up the Atlantic coastline. Marnie?
All right, Gerard, obviously looking ahead at where the storm is going, but we are still in the thick of this storm right now. So there's a lot of attention in Lake Charles, Louisiana. This city, of course, was hammered by Hurricane Laura in August. Thousands of people still have not been able to return to their homes. Many of the buildings that are left standing are even more vulnerable, and people still have tarp on the top of their roof. NewsNation reporter Blake Brown is live for us in Lake Charles tonight. Blake, set the stage. What are the conditions around you? How are people doing?
Yeah, good evening to you guys. Very rough conditions over the last couple of hours here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Now that nightfall has fallen, has come, I know it's probably as tough to see some of the winds here, but maybe you can still get, well, the power just went off there in the parking lot. I was going to say maybe you can see some of that rain being blown across this parking lot from where we are here in Lake Charles. It has been a rough couple of hours. I'm talking wind gusts possibly up to 80, 90 miles per hour, we're told, where we are here. We are situated in a parking garage, and we are safe and secure, but again, this is not a good situation, not a good setup for these folks here on the Louisiana coast. You just mentioned Hurricane Laura 6 weeks ago, devastating this entire portion of Louisiana. That was a Category 4 storm, a very strong storm here on the Louisiana coast. There are still a lot of blue tarps on the roofs. There is still a lot of debris on the side of the road, and I'm not talking about hundreds of piles. I'm talking thousands of piles of debris still here in these communities, and I can only imagine what it looks like in some of these neighborhoods right now in Lake Charles. We're not going to venture out there tonight. It is not safe to do so, but of course at first light it'll be interesting to see how Lake Charles fared with Hurricane Delta coming on shore just to the east of the city. I'm Blake Brown, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Blake, while we have you, before we let you go, can you give us an idea of the difference between what you experienced with Laura and what you're experiencing tonight?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you guys straight up, I did not experience Laura. I've experienced several hurricanes, though, here on the Gulf Coast, by all means, and this one was very intense, and partly because we were able to see the storm come on shore here in the daylight hours, and that is something here on the Gulf Coast you typically don't see. These storms, these landfalling hurricanes, typically make landfall overnight hours, and that obviously adds to the scariness of the storm, if you will, for a lot of residents hearing that wind and not really being able to see what's going on. So today we were able to see the storm as it came on shore here in Lake Charles, and I've got to tell you, very impressive to see the winds and see that rain, and of course see some of the debris flying in the air. Just absolutely incredible.
Blake, before we let you go, do you have any idea of how many people stayed and weathered this storm? Because I know a storm surge is a real threat, as are the winds tonight.
Sure, that's a great question. We have not heard specific numbers at this point as of who stayed. Now, I will say I did hear audio from the mayor earlier who said he believes a lot of residents did leave town. And we actually got to Lake Charles yesterday afternoon, and saw a lot of folks gridlocked on Interstate 10 heading west, getting out of harm's way over towards Houston. So I've got to tell you, I'm hoping at least that a lot of these residents got out of harm's way in time and, of course, did not stay in some of these structures, which I would imagine are being beaten right now by Hurricane Delta's winds.
All right, Blake Brown live for us tonight in Lake Charles. Blake, thank you very much for the update, and we will continue to follow this throughout the evening as Hurricane Delta tracks inland. Stay with us here on NewsNation for live reports from the Gulf Coast and also the latest information from our NewsNation weather team. For more coverage, you can download our NewsNation Now app as well.